If you're watching this video on the day it's uploaded, then today is the coronation of Charles III. Now, I'm not a royalist, in fact, far from it. But I'm intrigued by the history of our nations. So if you're watching this at any other time, you'll get an insight into UK history. Because on this morning of the coronation of Charles III, I'm looking at some of the connections and differences between this and the coronation of Charles II. And Scotland History Tours has been given special access to one of the jewels in the crown of royal heritage to do just that. If you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then click the subscribe button at the bottom right of the screen. In the meantime, let me tell you a story. Before Westminster Abbey existed, we had the Stone of Destiny. Its history is at the core of what unites and divides us on this island of Great Britain. For the coronation of a new monarch, it sits under Westminster's coronation chair, but it belongs here. It's the Stone of Scone. The last Charles was crowned in a chapel that stood there on this mound, a mound that saw the inauguration of many kings before him. They sat on the Stone of Destiny here, but he didn't. In fact, no one had since Robert the Bruce. So I'm going to peel back the layers of time and then lead you along a corridor to reach today's royal coronation. When Charles II was first crowned, he would have entered through that door. At the time, it was the main entrance to the Abbot's Palace, redesigned by the Ruthven Earls of Gowrie here at Scone. Charles arrived on the 31st of December 1650 for a New Year's Day coronation. And we're going to follow in his footsteps through the gilded rooms and rough terrain that bring us to today's coronation of Charles III. Charles Stuart had been declared King of Scots on the 5th of February 1649, shortly after his dad's execution in London. It was almost a year later that he walked in here. Of course, the English had declared a republic. So as soon as Charles arrived in Scotland, Oliver Cromwell invaded. So by the time of Charles's coronation here, English Republican parliamentarians already controlled much of the south of Scotland. Scots were appalled at the execution of his dad in England. But Charles still had to make humbling concessions to be crowned in Scotland. He'd had to sign the National Covenant, diminishing his role relative to Parliament and the Church. The monarchy was weaker than it ever had been. There was religious strife, there was political tension between Scotland and England. But on New Year's Day, 1651, Charles II would have stood on this spot. The building's been remodelled, but the door that we came in would have been the entrance then, and the gallery that we were going to pass along was the route followed by the coronation party. Leave aside cosmetics and modernisation, this place and the family who live here haven't changed from then till now. This is a picture of David Murray, the first Viscount Stormont. His 14 times great nephew is the guy that gave us access. Is it his 14th great cousin twice removed, or his 14th uncle's? I can't remember. The detail doesn't matter. He's a friendly, posh bloke. This chap, the 14th whatever, was given this property because he rescued James VI, the grandfather of Charles II, from a mob in Perth who had him trapped in a house about to blow him up in a gunpowder plot that came far closer to success than the one that's celebrated each 5th of November. This place was taken from the Ruthvens who owned it and given to David Murray. I cover the story in my video of the day the UK nearly didn't happen. Watch it. But the point is that without him, there is no Charles II in 1651. And there's no Charles III today. So, it's the same family, it's the same building because, let me show you. This is a model of the building back then and the current building side by side. Now, we came in that door as Charles would have. It's a side door now, but the structure, with some bits added on, still remains. We've come up the stairs, and Charles would have started his day in his audience chamber here, which is here. And we're going to follow the route that he would have processed out of the door at the end of the room, where on the other side of the octagonal hall, he would have followed with crown, sceptre and sword, escorted by nobility of Scotland along this gallery here. You can see that the original building had a door halfway along, and the coronation party would have gone out that door to Moot Hill, the chapel, and that site of royal inauguration. Now, you can see from the modern model that that door isn't here anymore. It's now a big window. We'll have to break that. But first, Charles wasn't the only monarch to grace this room. The king now being crowned Charles III follows the death of our longest serving monarch, Elizabeth. Now, I'm not going to give a number because that opens a whole can of worms. Should she have been known as Elizabeth I or Elizabeth II? Scotland never had an Elizabeth before. The UK never had an Elizabeth before. Was her choice to be called Elizabeth II a snub to Scotland? Was the coronation at Westminster Abbey but merely a visit in Daywear to accept the honours of Scotland in Edinburgh a snub? Or was it a royal protocol that was sensible? That's something you folks can argue out in the comments section. Engagement helps the algorithm. The point is that it was our longest serving monarch's death that prompted today's coronation. But this room is set out as it would have been for the visit of our second longest serving monarch, Queen Victoria. Charles II inherited 3 kingdoms at war with each other and themselves. That bloodshed continued in the Jacobite period, in which the Murrays played a huge role on the Jacobite side. It was that Jacobite period that ultimately led to the United Kingdom. But these 2 longest serving monarchs, one queen just passed and another whose presence hangs in this room, to many will seem like the rocks on which that United Kingdom stood. We'll come back to them as we walk the long gallery, as Charles did before us. But first, we pass through a time portal. I always feel that this part of the palace is both beautiful and evocative. It's almost as if standing here, you look all the way back to the past, beyond Elizabeth, beyond Victoria, beyond Charles II, to previous kings. James IV, the last Gaelic-speaking Scottish king who married Margaret Tudor, to Robert the Bruce, who retained Scotland's independence, to Malcolm Canmore, whose marriage to the Saxon princess Margaret, fleeing Norman conquest, may have changed these islands as much as any. All crowned here. And as we look forward since the death of Elizabeth, what comes next? Jason!
Mr. Fummey.
That's right, they call me Mr. Fummey, because not only were you a top tour guide here at Scone Palace, you were also a student, a pupil, in a science class that I taught at Perth High School.
That's right, I was, yes.
Yeah. And you went on to study history.
I did, but no fault of your own.
Where did it all go wrong? Where did it all go wrong? So this is, I mean, you've been here so many times, but what I wanted to ask you about was the coronation of Charles II. Because his dad, Charles I, was crowned King of Scots at Stirling Castle and crowned King of England down in London. His granddad was crowned James VI of Scots at Stirling, and later James I of England down in England. But Charles II was slightly different, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was. So whilst Cromwellian forces had occupied Edinburgh and the Lothians, Charles II had come to Scone for his coronation. And unlike his father and grandfather, he wasn't just crowned King of England, but crowned King of England, Scotland, Ireland, and France. So here was a first. So if you can imagine, when Charles II processed through this hall back in 1651, he'd done so as king of all of these kingdoms.
So the first ever unified coronation wasn't in Westminster Abbey in London, it was at Scone Palace in Perthshire.
Yes.
That's brilliant, aye. And how different would it have been compared to a London coronation?
Quite different, actually. So Charles II did not receive an Anglican service, but a Presbyterian one. So there was no Archbishop of Canterbury, there was no Eucharist, and Charles was not anointed with oil because that was deemed too superstitious and popish.
Yes.
Charles was also forced to get on his knees and place his hand to the national covenant.
Because he'd been made to sign the covenant in order to get the throne.
Yes,
Yeah.
And also the placing of the crown on the head of the monarch was not performed by a cleric on this occasion, but rather by the Marquis of Argyll, which was quite similar to the medieval period where Mormaer Scots noblemen would present the honours.
Yeah, so it takes that connection back. In spite of the fact he didn't sit in a stone of Scone, it takes that connection back to that Celtic kind of period where they would recite the ancestry all the way back to Princess Scota.
Yes, so if you can imagine, 1651, this was actually brought back for Charles II's inauguration, the recitation of the king's genealogy. It wasn't used for his father, but when it was presented, it served as a timely reminder of the rights of the royal line and their pedigree going all the way back to King Fergus.
There you go.
Yeah.
Then came a coronation banquet here in the palace itself. Plentiful supply of Bordeaux and Burgundy, damask napkins embroidered with CR and expensive cloth from Holland. 22 salmon, 10 calf's heads, vast numbers of partridges and meat. Manuscripts found here in the Scone Palace archives show entries for the generous food orders. After the coronation here, it took 10 years and the death of Oliver Cromwell before England fell into line, and Charles had a second, unnecessary coronation at Westminster. He'd already been crowned King of England here. Shortly after that second coronation, Charles Stuart signed the charter granting the Company of Royal Adventurers of England trading to Africa. That kicked off the transatlantic slave trade in Britain. 111 years later, a slave landing on English soil from Boston across the Atlantic challenged his master's right to own him when he set foot on that land. It wasn't the end, but maybe the beginning of the end. The newly freed slave who won his case was called Somerset. The master who lost was called Charles Stuart.
And the judge who decided in favour of the slave was William Murray, Lord Mansfield, yes. He was born here at Scone Palace as the fourth son of the 5th Viscount Stormont. Now, he first studied at Perth Grammar School.
I've got some pals that went there.
Before then travelling down to London, where he would carve out a career in law, and he would establish himself as the most powerful jurist of the 18th century. He was Lord Chief Justice from 1756 to 1788, and as a reward for his service to the Hanoverians, he was made Earl of Mansfield in 1776.
Hence the title that continues.
Yes, to this day, yes.
Ah, very good. Because not all the Murrays, some of them got into trouble, didn't they?
Yeah, some families tended to, play both sides. However, this family were actually staunchly Jacobite supporters, many of them. And in this room, in fact, a number of paintings relate to the Earls, brothers and fathers who were all supporters of the Jacobite cause.
And they're still in this
room, further along in the long gallery here.
All right.
Yes.
Well, we'll need to continue along the
gallery.
gallery.
We'll have to, absolutely.
Right. My point is, there's a continuous thread, maybe even a symmetry about this place that takes us from that rescue of James VI back in 1600 through acts and artefacts of empire to its peak at Victoria's visit. Jason, normally when I bring people to Scone Palace here, I tend to focus on the Celtic inaugurations out there in Moot Hill and then hand them over to you for things that happened inside.
Yeah, and inside the palace we tend to talk about, the intricate role that the family have played in British history over the last 4 centuries, and the number of royal visits which they have had as well. Queen Victoria, Queen Mary, Elizabeth, they've all been here.
You've had
all
them
have been here to Scone. Now, I want to show this collection in particular because it is really interesting, and this all pertains to Elizabeth's coronation in 1953. Now, if you look over there, you'll see these coronation robes. which would have been
aren't
worn
they fancy?
by the 7th Earl of Mansfield. He was one of the very few that were lucky, of course, to be invited as guests at her coronation.
Ooh.
Now, if you look really closely here as well, you'll see on this card
This
the
is,
number of her seat.
this is their invitation.
Yes, number of a seat, 92.
92,
Yeah,
right,
and if you look over here as well, you'll see the seat number 92. They're both here, yeah.
Aye. So what, did they nick that then?
They didn't nick it, no. They were, after the coronation, you're allowed to purchase the seats, and we're very lucky to have this here.
That's lovely.
Yeah, it's
That's
amazing.
lovely. Oh, well, listen, I really appreciate all that you've done for us today,
Yeah,
Jason.
it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for your chat.
Thank you so much.
And I
Thank
look
you.
forward to next time you take on science.
Yes. Thanks, Mr. Fummey.
Here's a measure of the change that's happened. While today's ceremonials of the coronation of Charles I would be very familiar to his mother, with hindsight, it feels like her coronation was a turning point. It sometimes seemed like she was single-handedly trying to hold back the tide with quiet fortitude. 5 years after her coronation, my dad's home state, Ghana, was established. The single black star on our flag tells that we were the first of a series of colonies that would become independent members of the Commonwealth. Over time, what happened was that many of these new countries would find influences elsewhere, and the bonds and influence of empire weakened. 2 world wars that held together the nations of Great Britain itself were over, and in time, the glue that's bound us bound less certainly. At times, it seemed like the one thing that had held us together was the Queen now passed. As the sceptre's passed, it feels like we're at a crossroads. Who knows what's on the other side? When Charles II walked along that corridor, he couldn't have known what the future held. As nations divided, competing religious differences, a weakened monarchy at the edge of a precipice, and forced to compromise. It was a transition on the other side of which was exile, then reinstatement, the killing times and the Royal Society, slavery and Newtonian science, Jacobite wars and the Enlightenment, the Industrial Revolution that would bring untold development, and climate change. Charles III has a deep interest in environmental issues, but one of the first things that he was made to do was to cancel his attendance at a climate change conference if he really wanted to be a constitutional monarch. A monarchy forced to compromise, weakened, some say on the edge of a precipice, trying to balance competing religions and be the defender of all faiths. With the British nations divided, there's a sense in which nothing's changed since 1651. There's also a sense that walking that gallery is a journey from a past which is only certain in hindsight to a future, well, it might seem daunting to some. Charles might want to pass the baton to somebody else. Well, I've got the robes for it. There are probably lots of folks on my islands who've never realised the vital importance of this place in the history of our nations. Why not make a point of visiting sometime? And if you've ever wondered how Scottish are the British royal family, then there's a video coming up on screen now. If you want to support the channel, then you can click the button to become a Patreon member up there, or buy me a coffee in the description below. In the meantime, Hammy and Dochas can be a lamb alley. Sherry and Drasta.